Hi, Ms. Natonski. How are you doing?
Hi, Daniel. I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well also. I hope your day is going, better than the usual Monday, as
It
people like to
is.
say.
It's rainy here, though. Is it rainy down there?
It rained a little bit this morning, but I like the rain though. That's one of the odd things about me. I
Yeah,
did want.
I've got two young kids that you might hear in the background because it's raining. Usually they're outside this time of day, and today it's
Uh,
inside. So
no,
I'm hiding in here. So hopefully we are uninterrupted.
no, it's a good thing that moving around and not to a screen.
That's right. That's right.
So give me your expertise in energy. What was the catalyst that placed you under contract with Duke Energy, and where did your keen interest like stem from in energy?
Yeah, so great question. I started off on the Hill. I spent right after graduating. So I thought I was going to go to law school and ended up working on a campaign the summer before I was supposed to leave and start law school that fall. And I caught a political bug, quite frankly. I loved the work I was doing on that. It was a Senate race at the time in Florida, and I loved the work that I was doing on that. I thought the issues we were talking about were really important. Energy was one of those issues, though it wasn't directly solely focused on energy issues. But I really liked the camaraderie of the campaign. I really enjoyed the different policies that we were trying to advance. So anyway, long story short, that Senate candidate actually ended up not winning. And so at that point, I had deferred law school in order to stay on the campaign long enough to see it through to the end, because I felt like at that point I couldn't leave right in the middle of the campaign. So then when the candidate lost, I ended up, through a friend, finding an opportunity to start with my local congressman at the time, represented basically the East Coast of Florida, the Congressional District 24 over there. And he got me a job, or an interview for a job, I should say, as the front office person in that congressional district. And so I jumped at the chance, moved to Washington on a whim. One of my good friends actually came with me as well. And I think, at that point, starting in a congressional office, when you're the person who is front and center, and you are answering constituent phone calls, and you are hearing about folks, you're reading all of the incoming mail from the congressional offices. That first job in a congressional office, when you're hearing directly from constituents, that really gives you the opportunity to see, what issues am I interested in, right? So when I started in Washington, I didn't know if energy was going to be the space I wanted to specialize in. But having that experience where I had to learn quickly and engage on several different issues allowed me to kind of figure out what I was most interested in. So from there, I started working and paying more attention to energy issues, because that was one of the ones I was passionate about. My last stop before I came to Duke Energy on the Hill was for a member of Congress whom we worked to get on the Energy and Commerce Committee. And so that really cemented my passion about energy issues, because I had to take sort of that inch deep, mile wide approach and go several layers deeper. And with that, um, I realized, this is an exciting issue to work on, because it really, no pun intended, powers all of our lives, right? It impacts us in so many ways. And so that opportunity really cemented my interest in the issues. So when I had the opportunity to interview for the job at Duke Energy, one of the largest investor-owned utilities in the country, I thought, I'm so excited about this. Those issues are ones that I felt really excited about leaving the Hill for, because that was the other thing you have to wrestle with when you leave government services. Am I ready to leave? You don't want to leave until you know it's time. And I felt at that point, I was in a personal space, I was ready to leave. But then the opportunity to work on issues where I felt like I could go and talk to policymakers in Washington about issues that I thought were going to impact everyone's daily lives and keep energy affordable and reliable and increasingly green, I thought I had to jump at that chance. So that's sort of where I landed with energy issues.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for going into detail about that because I know I'll probably stumble around similar issues in my life. So I really appreciate that information. Um, that's very interesting. So how long have you held the position of vice president at Duke Energy Legislative Affairs, and how have you done things differently from your previous position?
So great question. So I have been at Duke Energy for 5 years. I actually just got the 5-year anniversary notice on my email, and I couldn't believe it's gone by so quickly. So I have probably held the position of vice president for a year, year and a half. And then before that, I was the director of federal government affairs. So very similar work between what I came in at the director level and the vice president level, issue-wise, very similar work. I think the difference between the director opportunity and the vice president opportunity is the execution of corporate strategy and the execution of plans to deliver on those key policies that help us keep, energy affordable and reliable for our customers.
So when you say the execution of corporate policy and in your position as vice president, are you saying that you would ultimately make those decisions to how you guys would go about that, or would there be a discussion between your lower level staff going back and forth, or is the decision ultimately up to you?
It's a great question. So you want to take into account a lot of different stakeholders. First and foremost, our customers, our shareholders, and it comes from the business, right? So we view ourselves, the federal government affairs team in Washington, we view ourselves as a resource to our different business units, right? So we have business units that deal with operations, that deal with gas, that deal with renewables, that deal with nuclear, so on and so forth. It's as you can imagine, it's a pretty exhaustive list. And so what we do and what we think is really important piece of setting those federal policy priorities is hearing from the business what challenges and what opportunities they see with this landscape. So, you want to make sure you're well integrated with your business partners so that they let you know what challenges they're facing. They let you know what's coming around the corner. And then the great thing about the federal affairs team is if you have that coordinated relationship, you are able to then put the federal government affairs team can put the policy and the political lens on it and work with the business to identify, okay, well, here's a piece of legislation that can help us in this space, or there isn't a piece of legislation in this space. Is there something we can work to, generate through a coalition to advance? So I think the short answer would be that integration with your business.
Awesome. I got it. Thank you. So in one of your social media profiles on Twitter, you write in your biography on working hard to deliver reliable, clean, and affordable energy. Can you voice kind of like the perception of like what you've done to enhance your perception of what you've done to enhance the quality to make energy affordable, clean, and reliable throughout your career?
Yeah, so again, a really good question. So to me, it's one of the things that, I touched a little bit on why I wanted to come to Duke Energy. And that is really the key piece of it. Is the great thing is when I go to the Hill or when I go talk to partners in the administration, I know that the policies that I'm asking for are delivering value for the shareholders, and they're increasing reliability for our customers, or they're lowering customer rates. I'll give an example. The tax bill that passed, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, TCJA, back in 2017. This was one where a provision that we worked on, because that was included in the tax bill that passed and was ultimately signed into law, that allowed just Duke Energy to return, I think it was at the latest number I saw, over $800 million back to our customers, because we were able to either reduce rates as a result of the drop in the corporate income tax rate, or we were able to offset some of those storm costs. So for example, if a storm, I think at the time we were working with one of the storms in Florida, and as you know, off the coast, we get them frequently in South Carolina and North Carolina. So we were able to actually offset the storm costs for that provision and deliver those customer savings. So that's one that's really important. You know, we also talk about the importance of, you know, a diverse generation mix, right? So, you know, nuclear energy and the importance of nuclear energy, the importance of renewables, the advancements of these types of technologies and generation sources. It allows us to help keep customer rates low and keep reliability on.
Thank you so much for that. So given your background in legislative affairs and energy and politics, what political duties do you think you're obligated to during the Republican National Convention and the Democratic National Convention, and how do you usually prepare for these conventions
Yeah.
before
Yeah,
COVID-19?
I know. I think, you know, now we're post-convention, and these conventions looked, as you know, Daniel, these conventions looked very different than they have before, right? But that didn't stop us from being creative. You know, we engaged, you know, virtually at both conventions. And so for us, I think that's, you know, that's a real key, is that, you know, we engage with members of both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, you know, to talk about the important policies that we believe are delivering for our customers and our shareholders. So, you know, we originally thought the convention was going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina, which, as you know, Duke Energy is headquartered, the Republican convention. So, you know, we had partnered with the Charlotte Host Committee, which was a bipartisan group of leaders in Charlotte, to really think about how we can use this moment to create and drive economic development in the area. You know, unfortunately, we didn't get to have that experience in person in Charlotte, but that doesn't mean that, you know, the build out and the preparation and all of that was still very important to, you know, economic development in the area, even if it wasn't sort of what we thought it was going to be and was more of the virtual format.
Understood. Awesome.
But I'll give you an example. Before, I guess, you know, 4 years ago when things were in person, you know, ideally you're there, you're in person, you're talking to people, you know, you're engaging with, you know, key stakeholders at both conventions, and, you know, using the opportunity to really elevate your company.
I understand. Awesome. Okay. I did have another question, but I'll stick to the script. Given your background in legislative affairs, energy, I mean, my bad, I just already asked that. In a normal year, exempting the spread of coronavirus, what obligations are you subjected to throughout the day? And like, are you crafting proposals, provisions, hosting fundraisers, or attending meetings? And like, what kind of, what do those things entail?
So every day looks different, and I think that's one of the things that really excites me about this work. You know, you look at your calendar and you see what you think your day is going to look like, and then something comes across your desk that sort of changes the course, whether it's something that directly comes to you, or perhaps it's an external issue that then you have to mobilize and quickly respond to, or you know, seize the opportunity to advance. So that's one thing I really like, is that every day looks different. But I would tell you, I think when I think about the places that I spend my day, as an external facing role, right, I try to engage and get out of my office as regularly and as frequently as I can. And so I want to be on the Hill before COVID. You know, I took pride in leaving my office and going and marching around the halls of Congress and, you know, setting up meetings, you know, talking to people about the issues that were important to us, maintaining those network opportunities. That was something that I really, made an effort to do. And I think it's really important when you're an external facing role to remember that your stakeholders are very important and are just as important as your internal stakeholders. So I think in your first question, you talked about where the business priorities come from that we try to advance on the Hill. And that's that partnership with our internal leaders, right? And so it's that balance. So I try to make sure that I'm there and I'm a constructive partner with our business. And all of those internal obligations that you can imagine you have, right? Meetings, conversations, things like that, to stay up to speed on corporate initiatives. But then you really have to make an effort to go talk to your stakeholders, and you have to remember that your stakeholders are really important to your work. And so I would say I try to make sure my day is at minimum 50-50 split. I want to make sure, what I do oftentimes at the end of my day is I look back and I say, gosh, I've had a really internal heavy day today. What can I do tomorrow to fix that ratio and make up for it?
So clever. Given your background in legislative, I keep doing that. I'm just sorry. My question's on the side. I get a little distracted. So let me ask, since the coronavirus was burst upon the globe, I would say, how has your day-to-day work schedule and environment altered, and how have you adapted to meet the standards of your given tasks?
Yeah, so like a lot of organizations out there, like you're probably having to do or have at some point, we adapt, right? I think the great thing is we are a company that has always placed a premium on safety and preparation. That's always been one of our core values. So even though no one imagined necessarily the coronavirus coming in the way that it did, it's something that when you as a company or an organization or even your individual households prioritize safety and preparation, whenever something does come to your door, you're able to adapt quickly. And that's one of the things I've been really proud of our leadership team at Duke Energy for their ability to do, is that in a really unprecedented time, we've been able to quickly adapt. And quite frankly, Daniel, we've been able to adapt because we know our customers are depending on us. You all expect those lights to come on when you flip your switch. You expect your communities to be powered. And so we needed to respond and adapt quickly, and we did. And one of the things that just personally to our job that's different, I talked about how I usually try to go to the Hill all the time and have those in-person conversations. Right now, you can't visit Capitol Hill, right? So the way we are communicating with our stakeholders is very different. I'll give you an example. Annually, we bring our cybersecurity leadership in to have conversations with policymakers in Washington about our cybersecurity priorities, right? As you can imagine, it's a really important issue to the company. And this year, we're doing a virtual fly-in. So, I'm spending a lot of time in this chair. It's actually happening. It was last week and this week, so I'm spending a lot of time in this chair, and we're engaging with our stakeholders just like this. We're just doing it through Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever type of platform our stakeholders feel comfortable with, but we've adapted quickly.
Gotcha. So given the substantive obligations of a lobbyist, what were the most challenging obstacles you've had to overcome, and how those events of adversity tilted your perception on how you resolve inevitable conflicts?
So are you speaking to, personal conflicts within, say, there's a policy that is good for the business, but I don't personally, feel comfort with? Is that sort of what you're asking?
No, ma'am. I'm strictly on the business issue. So if you have conflicts that you will definitely arise in the future. How have those previous conflicts, and how have you dealt with them, tilted your perception on how you deal with the future ones that are inevitable?
Yeah, so I haven't, Daniel, I haven't really had a lot of challenges within my previous work and sort of the reconciliation of that, moving from, public government, public service to working in a corporation, I think the benefit is, you know, as I mentioned, on the issues we work on at Duke Energy, I think they're ones that, you know, I'm so very proud to go talk about and advocate for. I haven't really had to have that personal reconciliation, nor have I had to sort of reconcile that, to your point, between my previous work. My previous work on the Hill, a lot of that aligns, at least tangentially. There's a tangential connection to, you know, the work I do over here. So, you know, I haven't really had to face that so far.
Oh, I got you. So there's not so there's a huge difference in just like how you handle. I got you. Um, so on June 8th, you retweeted a post published by Duke Energy which promoted the donation of $1 million to nonprofits committed to social justice and racial equity. And I bring this up because I wanted to ask you if you feel if it was necessary for Duke Energy to allocate these funds to these particular issues.
Yeah, you know, Daniel, this was a really important investment we made with social justice and the racial equity grants. I think the really great thing to me about these grants, um, you know, these were identified by Advocates for African Americans, which is a company-led employee resource group. So it's a group of our employees who identified these grant opportunities, you know, and made the recommendation that we move forward. I think, you know, this is just so very important because we, Duke Energy, you know, we are committed to being part of that long-term solution to end systemic racism and inequality in the communities we serve. And so we thought this was a very important thing to do. You know, I think about you know, some of the grant recipients to, you know, in South Carolina in particular, because I know that that's likely of interest to you and your classmates. You know, you think about the big brothers and big sisters of the upstate. We did the Blue Ridge Community Center to help reduce disparate outcomes. You know, you think about how they work as a catalyst to provide educational, sports, and development programs to community residents. So we had investments in a lot of these organizations throughout South Carolina, and we thought that was a really important thing to do to help be a part of the solution.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that answer. I appreciate it. Um, so that concludes our part of the interview. I just wanted to thank you again so much for taking the time to let me ask you some questions about your career and what you do. It really meant a lot to me because especially because it's something that I would want to proceed in my life, um, being a lobbyist, and it really meant a lot to me. So I appreciate that.
Well, it's been great getting to know you too, Daniel, and I wish you all the best. I think, you know, it's really it's exciting work. I think whatever you do is having passion align with what you end up spending time doing during your day. That opportunity for that intersection will serve you and your future organizations well.
Thank you so much for that.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks. You have a nice day.
You too.